Welcome to Projects for All. My name is Mike, and today we got a brand new table saw to check out. I am freaking excited because I've been looking at this company and their products for years. And this is my first chance to check one of these things out. On paper, this is probably the most innovative, feature-laden table saw on the market, and it's only $350, and that is absolutely ridiculous. It cuts metal, wood, copper, aluminum, plastic, all with the same blade, with crazy features for 350 bucks. How is that even possible? Let's get in here and let's find out. So let's start on the front like we always do. Got our power switch, which is simply two buttons, on and off. There is no lock for this. There's nothing that flips down. There's no hole in the side to lock this down. On the front here, we have our raise and blade lower, just like any table saw. The tilt mechanism has this locking lever right here. Flip that out. That releases your tilt mechanism, and you have your scale right here, 0 to 45 on that side. But this has an added feature. On the back here, you see the teeth. If you push this in, a gear on the back side here will contact those teeth, and you can tilt maybe for a little more precision to hold it in a spot so you can lock this down. I would call this wholly unnecessary, but a nice feature and, you know, innovative. That locks it back down. Up here, we have our table extension lock lever. That's lock, that's unlock, and that allows you to move your table extension to the right. This one is for the extension on this side. I'm going to show you that in more detail. And then this one up here pulls down. You turn it halfway and it locks up. And that is for your table, for your miter gauge slide. But we're going to show you that in more detail too. Almost forgot. Motor reset button is in a nice convenient location. On the right side of the saw, you have almost nothing going on at all. There's a slot up here for your push stick. You got a little plaque with some information, 65 pounds, 10-inch blade, 1-inch arbor, 15-amp motor. You got your serial number. Mine was manufactured May of 2021, so a full year before I bought this. There's some brackets here. There's a tab for locking something in. For the absolute life of me, I cannot figure out what goes here. The instructions don't allude to it. Leave me a comment if you own this saw and you know where all the things stow. Leave comments, let us know, because holy crap, I couldn't tell you what goes there. Here on the back side, still not a whole lot going on. You got a nice keeper for your cord. I always like when something has a keeper, delta. You've got your dust port, two-part dust port. So this side is for the included hose that attaches to your blade guard. That goes on like so. The outside of this one, 1 9/16. This should fit right on the inside of my old rigid shop vac. Left side, we got a space for blades with a little thumb screw in our 2 wrenches for getting our blade on and off. And we have another bracket that is a total mystery to me. It's got tabs here and here to lock what you would totally think is the fence. But so help me, I can't get the fence to go into this thing. These tabs are sticking out too much. It does not fit in here. And then here's our 2 thumb screws for this side's table extension. I showed you those thumb screws on the bottom. There's one on either side. And we have a table extension for the left side, which is nice. It's captive, locks in. We have a table extension on this side. It is that release lever that I showed you. Flip it out, and you can pull the scale and everything, making this a fairly large table. But when you pull this extension out, your scale comes with it. So we got to talk about that. because that's a little odd in itself. Your dust hose has a loop on the end here. So you kind of got to adjust it as you move it, but it stays off your table and away from your material. This hose fits really snug on here, but this hose is paper thin plastic. I don't know how long this is gonna last. Hopefully a long time. So you got this screw here, and it just fits into the hole in the riving knife. This is on a spring. So it makes it pretty easy to put on, and then it just screws down. More so than a lot of saws, because of the dust collection, you're probably going to want to have this on here. If you're cutting metal, having dust collection on the top is going to be imperative, because you can't really hook this up to your normal wood dust collector. This is the saw you're going to use with a vacuum. So let's talk about our scale here for a minute. So we have 0 and we have 0. We have our extension all the way in, so that is sitting at 0. Actually, it's really not. So let's push it over, we'll lock it down. It's pretty close to 0. And then here's the other 0. Evolution recommends that you use this extension all the time. If you're not using the extension, your 0 is here, the orange. If you are using the extension, your 0 is here, it's black, because this is 2 inches. So pushing this over against the blade will put you at 2 inches or 0 with the extension. So here's where things start to get squirrely. We have our extension set to 0, right? We'll unlock our extension, we'll extend it fully 12 1/4. So we're gonna lock it down, and now we're still going to use the scale on that side, but we're going to add 12 1/4 to any number we set it on this side. We're still going to use the black numbers on the bottom because we're using the extension. So we'll set this to 10 inches here. We'll lock it down. So now we are 12 1/4 plus 10. We should be 22 1/4 from the edge of this little fence to the blade. We'll set that on the orange 10 or the black 8, but we should be using the number 8 because we're using this little fence. So from the little fence to the blade is 20 1/4. That's correct. But it is very easy to screw this up. I mean, it's not rocket science. It isn't. But, so, we set it to the 0 on the black here. It's at 12 1/4 here on the orange. And we're at 12 1/4 to the blade, which is correct. I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, it's fine, it works. They explain it to you sort of in the manual, and once you start looking at it and figuring it out, it works, but it's not particularly ideal, I think. We're at 0 right there. But we're not, because this extension moves just a little bit, and it's off again. If I squeeze it, while it's locked, I can actually move this whole rail. So let me show you that. So I have this locked down. I have it set to 0. Let me give it a squeeze. It's at 0. This is locked. Now it's at 1/4 inch. That's all it takes. This mechanism that locks this fence or locks this extension does not lock it securely. And it takes the slightest little bump and we're off by 1/16 and 1/8. Come on, man. This is wholly unacceptable. So here's our extension lock system. You push this in, there is two rods that come in and they loop around and they're kind of like cammed inside here. The springs are just for return. When I push this down to lock it, it pulls both of them in. It pulls it over here and it pulls it here. It's the same on either side. So I don't see an obvious way to tension this. This right here on the end is 10 mil. And turning it, it does turn. I can hear the spring moving around, but I can't tell if I'm actually doing anything. There possibly is some threads in there. I can't tell through the spring. We're gonna pull this rail off of here and we're gonna see what's behind here and see if this is actually a way to tension this, because to me, that makes all the difference of whether or not this saw is good. So I unbolted the back rail from the wing, which basically frees it up. And here's what we got. Simple design. Pulling this off. And this is just threaded. It's basically a thick threaded washer on this plastic piece. The end here is threaded. So yes, turning this does do something. And we can make this tighter. Let's see if we can't adjust this so we can get those rails tight. And I would call that not a problem if that's possible. Let's put it back together and find out. So I adjusted those two pieces as tight as they would go. And it was pretty solid, but sliding it in and out provided a lot of binding. So I backed them off a little. The tension point for both rails all the way across is only right here underneath, and it holds it here. So this side here only has one roller that fits kind of loose. And when you tighten this down, this side comes away from the table, like so. And it allows this thing to cant a little bit as it comes out. And even tightening those two contact points here for that lever and making them as tight as they would go didn't make it rock solid. It did make it better. If you tighten the fence down on this side, it's still loose and it still comes off the end there. And you can accidentally bump it and make it inaccurate and cant your fence this way. So not a good situation for a table saw. If I put the fence on this side and tighten it down, now there's a tension point on both sides, one here and then the fence, and it's solid. Even hitting it hard, it takes a lot to get it to move. I don't know. I leave it to you guys. What do you guys think about this? All right, let's talk about the fence. Sadly, this nonsense is not going to get any better with this. The fence has the old school design of just squeezing the two ends together. There's a rod inside here. See if you can see it. There's a rod in there that literally just gets pulled this way. That's all we're doing. So we got a really lightweight piece of aluminum here, which is fine. This little fence that they tell you to use all the time, and it's held on by these two thumb screws, these two nuts here, which is fine, but they're both on this side. So the freaking thing is literally loose on this end. I mean, it doesn't matter. It keeps it together, but it's moving around. It's rubbing the table. I don't understand where the design decisions happened here. It doesn't make any sense to me to have this thing. I mean, I've got it tight. I'm not wrench it too tight because we're squeezing aluminum here. So if I take the fence and I push it from this end up against the blade, it doesn't stop at zero. Why? Because the fence comes out of the rail just a little bit and it flexes just a little bit. So I mean, you push it back, it sits at zero, but it would be, oh, that end cap. It would be very easy to do that, lock it down, and there we are, locked down. And we have it against the blade, but we're showing off a 1/4 inch. Why? Because the fence is crooked and the fence is completely locked down, and it's allowed me to lock it crooked. You have this much movement in the fence itself. This fence design absolutely allows you to lock this fence down crooked. We're off by a 1/4 inch. Lock it down. Off by a 1/4 inch. This is all compounded by the fact that we have 0 here, and if I whack the end of this, even with the fence locked down and squeezing both ends together, I'm still able to accidentally move this, and now we are no longer sitting on our blade. Although we're showing a 1/4 inch this way, we're actually on that side of the blade. Total nonsense. Because we bumped this way, we have a gap right here that goes to pretty tight on that end right there. I don't know if you can see it with the fisheye lens, but the whole thing now is crooked. This extension, the 2 different scales, the fact that the rail moves, the fact that the fence can be locked down crooked, all of this together is just making me tired. I don't want to deal with any of this. Since I saw this company, what I've wanted is the dual compound 10-inch chop saw, because I like to do a little metalworking as a hobby. The ability to cold cut metal and have the same chop saw for wood, and I can get rid of my 14-inch abrasive chop saw, which I do not like, and I can get rid of old trusty blue Ryobi over here. And that's why I wanted to do these reviews for Evolution. What I'm interested in is the blade. Does it cut metal clean? Does it cut metal well? Can you actually switch from wood to metal to wood to metal? That interests me, because who knows, maybe the chop saw is well designed and a quality piece. It's possible. I'm not going to put down tools I haven't used because one tool is not so great. Let's look at the rest of this thing, and let's see how this blade cuts, because I hope it just rips. Just rips. Let's find out if the blade is good. Normally I breeze over the miter gauge on these little saws because, you know, they're usually not that good and there isn't a whole lot to talk about, but Evolution has given us lots to talk about when it comes to the miter gauge, because the miter gauge is a major part of this saw. Almost as much, I'd say, as the fence itself. It's very short, clearly, shorter than you would expect a miter gauge to be, and it fits in the slot as expected. Lock it down. It has little thumb screws here and a slot on the back, so you can move this back and forth. Get it nice and close to the blade. It's very nice. If you loosen these up enough, you can pull this right off of here. You could put something else if you want your own. It's got a nice little system here to put your own sacrificial fence on this, or anything you want. Cool design, I think. Fits right back on there. Turn these, lock back in. Cool. It even turns nice and smooth. There is a hole in your table right here, and you take this, and this goes through the bar on the bottom and screws itself into that hole. So now the miter gauge is locked to this panel. You can still adjust it for your angle. You can still move this back and forth. And underneath the saw, that little knob I showed you, you turn it halfway and you have unlocked this panel here. So now you can move the whole panel with your material, and it gives you a sled, if you will, which is pretty cool. It's a very cool design. In addition to that, you get a clamp, which fits right down here, and you can quick adjust and then screw it down from the top, so you can hold your material to this part of the table and keep it from moving around as you cut, which is, I'm sure, very helpful for metal or just about anything. This is all a very cool design. I'm pretty impressed with this. There are a few issues. For instance, believe it or not, this is actually machined this crooked, and this was threaded at this angle. This was out of the box, just like that. That is wild. Wild quality control on this thing. Not that it much matters, but just rough. There's our crooked bolt. So this panel slides on these plastic 2 rails right here. They're nice and greasy, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna get plenty of sawdust stuck to them and metal shavings. You know, you can take this off and clean off these rails. I will say, this screws down in this hole just fine and holds it secure, even though this is completely crooked. Let's talk about our blade. It's easy to see. This is all the space you get here. There is no space in here for a dado set. This is not that kind of saw. It's made for these blades. On the other side, the blade is very close to the trunnion that extends back to hold your riving knife, and there's a couple bolts, and there's like down here maybe 1/8 of an inch. So removing the washer on this side down here, I don't think will do anything. We've got our 2 wrenches. They're different sizes. Instead of a long arbor and a nut that goes on the end, you get a bolt. And you get a washer. It's keyed for the arbor. The bolt obviously sits here. So you got 1 big hex for your wrench, and then use the other wrench to loosen your bolt. Pulling the blade out, there's our arbor. Arbor is very small. This washer on the back side. The arbor itself is 5/8. So you can put a 5/8 blade on this and flip this around, and it will take a 5/8 blade. For the 1-inch blade, you got this lip. So these blades sit on this lip. Otherwise, use the flat side for 5/8. Here's our arbor. Here's our riving knife. And it is literally held in with this aluminum block here and this 1 bolt that goes through it. So you turn it, and that'll loosen up your riving knife, which is adjustable in the sense that you can pull it out. So keep in mind that this hole right here is for your blade guard, which is kind of a necessity because it has dust control on it. And you can pull this out, so if you're gonna run your blade real low to the table, you can still use your dust guard, but you got to take it all apart and loosen this to adjust this and then tighten it back down. To line this up with your blade, there is no adjustment built into this. It's literally just a block with a screw through it. Someone commented, rightfully so, that it can be adjusted, of course, with very thin shims in this block here on either side to move this back and forth. And that's what you would have to do, for sure. A lot of products made by Evolution take this exact same multi-material blade. And I've been interested in buying for myself their dual bevel 10-inch sliding miter saw for years. So I got metal of every shape and size. I got wood of every shape and size. And let's see if the blade is good. Let's cut some stuff. So this video is so long that we had to kind of abbreviate some of the cutting, which I didn't really want to do, but there's a lot to talk about with this saw. It's just such an oddball. $350 is an amazing price to pay for a table saw that does what this can do. But it's built to a low standard, I feel, and there's a lot of stuff I don't care for. Most of all, this fence design I don't like. I was really hard on the rigid R4520 because it has basically the same fence design. However, the R4520 is a $750 contractor saw that weighs 200 pounds. And I feel that this fence doesn't belong on a saw like that. For an inexpensive job site saw that can cut metal, I was willing to look past this fence design if everything else was good. And the fence design is compounded by the fact that I cannot 100% lock these two rails. So the fence doesn't move, it locks down pretty solid, but the rails move. So that'll cant the fence this way, giving you a nice funnel to feed your material through if you're not careful, and potentially giving you a dangerous situation. I don't like it. I just don't like it. You tell me what you think. I leave it up to you. Let me know in the comments what you think about this design. I would love to see this blade and this motor in a simple rack and pinion fence design, and that locks down securely. And I think that would be amazing for $350. But honestly, I would rather pay $500, $600 for this saw and have better materials and a better build and a saw that really excels at what it does. Let me know if you want to see more cutting. We're gonna do the chop saw. I don't care how this turned out. We're getting the chop saw. We're gonna see that one. And hopefully that one's simple and easy to check out and we can do a lot of cutting and really go through this blade. So keep an eye out for that. If you guys have any questions, I'm always in the comments. Post in the comments. I'm happy to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. I'll see you in the next one.